right, Jason Hambly, let's give him a warm welcome.
While I'm going about this thing, I'm going to go over a bunch of different products and Brining Herring and all sorts of stuff. If you guys have questions all along the way, please let me know. I'll try to do my best to answer it. All right. Time to set up here. I got a whole bunch of stuff here, so I'll kind of go over everything step by step here. Have any of you guys used Procure before? There we go. All right. So I'll start out with Brining Herring. The first thing you want to do is when you go buy your trade baits like this, is a lot of them come in a vacuum packed container, just like that. What you want to do before you even let them thaw a little bit is poke some holes in the bag or cut the end of the bag off. And the whole reason behind doing that is as it thaws, it can draw that blood out of the fish and through the eyes and everything else, and it'll kind of fog your baits up a little bit. It's just a good idea to do. So take that, poke some holes in it, or cut the ends off, whatever you're going to do. I got to take the package apart here anyway. And another good thing to do is when you get your trade baits is to take those and let them thaw a little bit before you peel them off. Some containers are better than others, like these styrofoam ones aren't as bad, but some of the paper ones, when you go and you just rip the herring off the tray, you can pull those scales off. And what that does, that just takes away some of your flash and your shine off your herring. So you want as shiny and good of a bait as you can have. That's very important. So basically, there's a lot of different types of cures you can use, or brines you can use. There's the Brine and Bite, which is right here. And then there's Brine and Bite Complete, which is everything all done up. With the brine, what you want to do is you want to add distilled water, or you want to use river water or ocean water, whatever you got access to. Just don't use any chlorinated water out of your tap, because that just adds scent that you don't want in there. So if at all possible, use the best water is just when you're done fishing at the end of the day, is just take that whatever you use your bait trays for your bait trays and just fill those up with water, put the top back on them, and use those next time you go, if it's anytime soon. But another good thing to do is, I don't always use these because especially if you're going if you're driving up and down the coast or going somewhere far away, is sometimes if you just put them in here and add the water to it with your herring, what can happen is those baits knocking around in there all day when you're driving can knock the scales off as well. Because you'll notice at the end of the day, after fishing for a long day, you'll notice the whole bottom of your bait tray might be full of herring scales. So you want to avoid that if you can. Another good thing to do is when you get your herring and everything's ready to put in your container the night before, don't do it the morning of, because the problem is it doesn't give that bait time to brine up good. And by the time you go that next day, your baits are going to be perfectly ready. If you do it that morning, by the time you go fishing and get there, you're not going to have any brine to them, and your baits are still going to be mostly frozen. So when you, try to go through each step here. When you apply this stuff, it's pretty much a no-brainer. Just take your brine and just pour it on. What this has in it is the Brine and Bite powder, and it has Bait Bright and Pure UV. The Bait Bright is just a bluing agent. It's what a lot of people use in their clothing to brine them. It's pretty much the same thing. And then the UV, we pretty much use UV in all our products. It just brightens your baits up, and in low UV conditions it'll help lighten everything up and make it more visible to fish. Allegedly. I don't know whether it makes a big difference, but it sure doesn't hurt. So basically just pour it over it. My containers are too small, so I'm not going to be able to give you a true deal here, but just pour it over it until your baits are covered, and then you'll put put the lid on them and let them sit in there overnight. It's really a no-brainer deal on the brines. We also have them in chartreuse, we have them in blue, we have them in natural, which are all here. The chartreuse is one that really doesn't get used enough, that should be used more. That's a very, very good color. We've had some great days out in the saltwater and in the Columbia River, all over the place with it. It's been extremely effective. Now what kind of sets the brine and bite apart from a lot of the other brines is these have 3 branched chain amino acids in them, and those chemicals in that brine, you'll smell it when you open it. Also, if you get some brine that's been sitting on the shelf a while, you'll notice it kind of turns that reddish color. And you probably bought it where it's been sitting on the shelf for quite a while and it even gets browner. When it does that, it actually changes the smell. It actually enhances it almost. So that's not a bad thing. A lot of people will take the lid off and leave it off and let it get that color and then put it back on. And as far as bite stimulants, if you wanted to add additional ones to your herring brine, over top of what's in there, there's another product we make. It's called Monster Bite. And that is all just branched chain amino acids. This is a condensed form, so if you do use this, use it very sparingly. You don't need a ton of it, just a little bit. But even to your egg cures, to your brines, to your prawns, to your everything, whatever you want to add it to, sand shrimp, it's a great additive. I use it quite a bit. And as far as making your own, what you want to do is you get a Kool-Aid container, to one of these whole Kool-Aid containers. You're going to add the entire jar. It takes the whole thing. And the best thing to do, you'll see a lot of people will just get a tray of bait and they'll put it in there and they'll just take a few scoops out and put it in there. The only problem with doing that is you're not getting an even mix. So you don't really know how much, you don't know if it's the right water to brine ratio. If you can get one of these and add the water to it and then mix it up, that's going to be your best bet. That's going to make sure you get the right mixture to it. So just pre-mix that, put the water in it, and you want to add the bluing and UV, unless you're going to add dye to it. That's kind of the beauty of doing this way, is you can change the colors without having to buy one each of these. Is you can do a couple different trays, you can pour in each of them, and then just add the amount of dye you need to them. A lot of times with chartreuse, 1 scoop will do it, maybe 2 tablespoons when I say scoops. And then just mix it up, and then your best bet to test it is to put a paper towel in there and just see if it's the right brightness you want. Because a lot of times what will happen is you'll add it to it, the water will look really bright, but it's not enough to color the baits. And then if you wanted to further brighten it, you can also add a little bit of baking powder to it, and that'll make it pop a little more. So that's another good thing to know. So that's probably it on the brines. Do you guys have any questions on the brining at all?
Is there any ice in the process?
No, you won't. Well, the only thing, of course, the most important thing is keeping your baits cold once they are brined. So if you put ice in the cooler, that's definitely a must.
What about the chlorinated ice? I mean, it's all chlorinated ice. So does that affect the?
Well, it's not, it shouldn't be. I mean, it shouldn't be in contact with your bait. It's just in the cooler. So you're.
There you go.
Yeah.
So that's the way to keep your bait in if you've got a lot of leftovers in a day.
What you can do is, when you get done fishing at the end of the day, is take them out of that brine solution and then put them in a Ziploc bag and roll them up and stick them in your freezer. Because what happens is if they sit in the bait, I don't care how cool you keep it, it gets soupy and your baits will get soft on you. So the best thing to do is take them out, roll them up, put them in the freezer. When you take them back out and you go to fish the next day, you're going to put them back in your brine or wherever you're going to store them. And when you take them out, they're going to look puckered up and really kind of wrinkled up and nasty looking. But as soon as you stick them back in the water, they go and they fill right back out. So, yeah. Any other questions? All right. So we'll go on to scent. Now scent, like everything, there is no magical scent that's going to just make you catch 10 times more fish. It's just not how it works. But what it can do, though, is every day is different, and some days the bite's really tough, and some days it's really good to kind of change things up and add something different. Because especially if you get in those heavy trafficked fisheries like the Columbia River or areas where there's just hundreds and hundreds of baits down there flashing in front of them, there's always going to be something that's going to set you apart and something that makes that difference. Not only your technique, but or the way you roll your herring or whatever. There's always something that's going to help you. And there's a lot of days when we'll have 6 different guys in the boat and everybody's using a different scent, and you'll see on a consistent basis where that one particular scent seems to be getting bit more. A lot of times we'll change everything over to that scent, and that seems to help a lot. So, and as far as scents go, when you are running herring or anchovy or any live bait type deal, we make a couple different types of, we make a bait sauce, we make a bait wax, we make a super gel, we make a bait oil. Bait oils are the best if you're running herring. And the reason, or anchovy, the reason is because you can inject the baits. So we have a 2-ounce injector cap that screws on each of these bottles, so you can get a 3-pack of them, or you can also buy one that's a empty bottle that has a cap on it. You can fill that with, you can mix and match whatever bait you want in there. If you want to mix multiple baits, that's an option too. But there's particular scents that have seemed to work well time and time again when it comes to salmon. And in closer to estuary type fisheries, in cooler water in most cases, anise is always a really good one to add. Bloody tuna is always a really good one. Anise bloody tuna is a mix, and then garlic bloody tuna as you get further up the river, or in the summertime when the water's warmer. Anything with garlic in it. It's one that has been overlooked for a lot of years, but it's super, super good. And a lot of guys now are running the cut bait, or the cut plugs and the super baits and all those, and what they'll do is they'll mix their own tuna up. And inside that tuna, it's a good idea to add the oils to that as well, because that'll just slowly leach out of that tuna. And when you're running that, when you're running the bait oils in that, the 3 combinations that I've seen noticed the best that I always have is bloody tuna and krill. And then for the summertime is running the garlic in it. Whether it be with bloody tuna or just plain garlic or salmon slammer, those 3 are super good. It's just that garlic scent seems to help a lot when warmer water. But down here, a little bit of pure anise is always a good bet, which is in a jar like this, just a little glass jar. We can't put it in the plastic because it'll eat away at the plastic. It's pretty harsh stuff. So, but those are all good. And then when you get into your lures and dodgers, flashers, anything like that, the super gels are going to be the way to go. On that is just your typical herring, anchovy, bloody tuna, anise bloody tuna, garlic bloody tuna, salmon slammer. All those are just really good go-to scents, and they seem to be good performing, consistent scents. And then as you get into things like bottom fish, you're changing things up. If you're running any jigs or any grubs or anything like that, again, you want to stick with the super gels. We do several different scents for that, and everybody's probably heard of this, is butt juice. It's a really good scent, and it's good for halibut, bottom fish. It's a heavy oil in the oil end of it. The gels, they're salmon egg base, and they have lots of fish oils, and they have just a little bit of anise in them. So that's another good one for halibut and lingcod. And octopus, squid, those are all really good performing scents. And another one too that's overlooked a lot is we do one that's called garlic butt juice, and we also have a garlic bloody tuna. Those are all another great option for bottom fish and lingcod. So, you guys got any questions on the scent? Yes, sir.
How long do you leave your baits in that liquid place?
How long do you like?
How long will it last? If you just throw a tray of baits in it, I use like 1 gallon Ziplocs, and how long can you leave it in there?
For in the brine,
Yeah.
or in brine, if I put it in the brine the night before, usually I'll let that sit in there overnight, and then I'll use it the next day. And if I don't use it all, I'll put it in that Ziploc bag and freeze it. I don't let it sit in there 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, because the problem is it just starts the smell changes, the consistency changes, the whole, your bait just isn't as good a quality. And I mean, you're going through the expense of paying for the fuel out there and the whole thing, and the most important thing is your baits. I mean, that's really, it's a good idea to have the best baits.
You wouldn't want to have whatever kind of container you use, and just, like right now, we're fishing daily up in Portland.
Right.
You just wouldn't have a container with your brine in, just keep adding bait to it.
No. No, because what happens is your herring, they'll just keep drawing the salts out of it. And the more bait you put in there, the more salt it's going to draw out of that brine. And pretty soon you don't have any salt left. There's nothing there to brine your baits. So it's.
So 2 days on the brine, slide.
I would personally, I would use them that next day, and whatever you don't use, I would refreeze because they just keep breaking down. Steve, he'll fish a couple days on bait out of the fridge, but I don't. I usually just I like to either freeze it or use it that next day. If outside of that, I'll just restart and get new baits or freeze them and use those later. Like down at Astoria, I'll usually take a case of bait with me. I'll take 5 trays a day. If I go through 3, if we get done early or whatever, I only go through 2 dozen herring or whatever, I'll take those and put them in a Ziploc and back in the freezer and then use them as needed throughout the week. So, yeah.
So after you use that brine, it's pretty much done? Like
For the most part, yeah, because it just, the smell changes, the consistency changes. It's just, I would say unless you just use an obscene amount. If you use the whole entire 31-ounce bottle to 1 tray of bait, obviously you're going to pull all the salt
and
out.
it's good for like 4 trays of bait or 5 trays of bait?
Yeah. Well, on the big bottles, depending on the container, if you're not using a giant container that's going to eat up a lot of your bait, a lot of your brine, you can probably get 7 to 11 trays of bait out of 1 jar. So, yeah.
So using fresh bait, like we do up in Astoria, can you refreeze it the same way you do off like you're doing your trays? You're not talking about your trays.
Yeah, once they're brined, you can. The fresh baits, to be honest, they don't brine quite as well as the frozen bait. They're a little softer generally, and they don't brine quite the same. But you can. It's just the frozen bait seems to take a little better to it.
If I've got a short day fishing and I want to do just half a tray, is there a good way to thaw it and then vacuum freeze what I don't take?
You can, yeah. If you can, try to do it on a manual setting and to where you can seal it before it gets too crazy, drawn out. But
without, I want to get thawed enough so I don't damage the scales. But if it's thawed and then I refreeze it, is that a problem?
yeah, you can do that. Yeah, you're talking once it's brined.
No.
Oh, before it's brined? I don't know if that's the greatest idea. I haven't done that personally, but I don't know. I don't know how to answer that.
Just brine everything.
If you can, that's your best bet. Because I would think you're probably gonna get crystals, and it just probably won't. I don't know if it would freeze the same. Because some things even like on salmon roe, once that's all cured up, and it's not a good idea to refreeze them because they just turn to mush. It's not good on the baits. So, any other questions?
Once your baits are cured, you freeze them. How long will you leave them frozen before you toss them?
After they're cured?
Like after they're cured, yeah.
Probably not past the season.
Okay.
Unless you're just going to use them, just save them for crab bait or something down the road. But as far as for fishing, I wouldn't go past the season. They'll just get ice crystals on them, and they just change after a certain amount of time. So, but throughout a season, you're fine. And it's a good idea to do that. It really does. The baits are fine, even though they look puckered up, but they fish good, and they're not all mushy. So, any other questions?
So you take them out, you refroze them,
Yep.
and then you're going to fish them and you put them back in, right?
Yeah.
It takes the pucker out.
Yep. Well, it doesn't take the pucker out. The brine won't, but the water will. Once they just get enough water to them, they'll plump back out. It's just if you put them back in the brine, there's so much salt and so many chemicals in there. It just puckers them up. It just like when you're done fishing, the end of your hands are all dried out, and it's just pretty harsh stuff. So your baits aren't going to fill back out with just the brine. More from when you start fishing them. And even that, when you do put them on there, if you plug heavy baits, when you put them on there, they might spin weird for a minute, just because they do look a little puckered up, but they just within minutes they look great.
So you don't need to rebrine.
No, you don't need to. No, they're pretty well brined by then. Yeah.
So what's the shelf life of that product, those, say the scent oils and whatnot?
Your bait oils are 5 to 7 years, and the super gels are 7 to 10 years. It's a long time. And it's pretty obvious when they do go bad. Either they completely lose the smell, or they will turn just really gut-wrenching rancid. So there's no in between. They, you know it. Yep, they're very obvious. That's the thing, that our product is different than a lot of them because it is real. It's real bait. Actually, there's a lot of the seafood suppliers and stuff we buy our baits from supply a lot of the communities down here. So everything we do is real. So yeah, we stabilize it and get it all bottled up, and then so it can go bad. The worst thing for it is really extreme sunlight, like just leave it in the windshield of your boat, have it cook in your boat all day. That's not the best thing you can do for it. If you can, try to keep it in the cooler or something like that. Because heat's okay, but extreme heat ain't. That'll kill it.
I love the gut-wrenching scent thing. I had a gal explain my personality just like that.
I agree.
Do we have any more questions? So one thing I like to talk about when I talk about scent is just same as a human. When you're driving by a Burger King and you smell that cheeseburger, you know, you're smelling all those little pieces. A fish can smell the lettuce, the hamburger, the whole McGilligan. And the other thing is, and Steve Lynch told me this at one time, he's like, well, do you like pork or do you like bacon? And that curing process is attractive to fish. But I'll let you go back to what you were doing.
No, you're good. No, that's definitely true. I mean, fish smell parts per million, and it's not only just the scent you're covering up your human odor. That's what makes a big difference. It's just even that, wearing gloves helps a lot. So whatever you can do to eliminate that, scrub your lures down, scrub your baits, or not your baits, but your lures, any of your attractants down with either soap, or just this hand and lure soap is good, or you can just use non-ultra lemon joy, just something without bleach in it. Anything like that helps. All that stuff, and it's not going to make your day go from a fish to 10 fish. Some days it will, but the biggest thing is just giving yourself that little extra edge. So, all right. Well, I'm going to. What I told these guys is, we got everything up here on the table here, and you guys, I don't know how you want to work that out and give all these guys this product.